All right. Hello, everyone. And it's so great to be here. We have in our midst Oluwaseun Adepoju. Is an amazing person and is someone that's very invested in the topic about ecosystems. And today we'll be discussing the Venture Matrix for the Future of Africa, Series 5, where we talk about the possibility of an ecosystem that can radically disrupt the economic narrative of Africa right now. This is a very important discussion that we need to have, because if we are going to create change that is sustainable, we have to create systems that make sure that we have that outcome. We have an integrity of outcome, so that whenever we have input, we can always be sure to some degree that we're going to have an outcome. And the way economics, the way economic narratives are formed are through the ecosystems producing those narratives. And, I'm so delighted to have Mr. Oluwaseun with us. So how are you feeling today, sir?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, and it's a great pleasure to have this conversation with everyone this afternoon. I'm really glad at what you're doing with Venture Matrix, and it's a big privilege to be part of this today.
All right, awesome. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. So on the forum, on the venture, we normally have 4 sections of 15-minute conversations each. And what we try to establish is the first section, which is the trivia. We try to establish the motive, if I would call it that, or the area of interest in this conversation with the stakeholder that we have in our midst. We want to understand your what, your why, your how, right? We just want to establish that human connection with you as regards the topic. Then number 2, the second section is we're going to have a discourse. And what we do on the discourse is to have an understanding of the parameters of what we're trying to have a conversation about, so that everybody can speak the same language. Then we're going to jump right into the strategy section, because the context here is about increasing the participation of young people, especially the undergraduate community, in the conversation about defining Africa's prosperous destiny. And then the last section is the forum, where we focus on the one thing that we need to take concerted and deliberate action right now. So first question we want to ask is, I personally know that while you were in Nigeria, you were very, and I mean very active in the Ibadan space, especially the University of Ibadan. And you even had engagements that, drove conversations about the startup ecosystem in Ibadan, stemming from that undergraduate community. So first thing we will need to learn, is that, is this what's the actual value or worth of this conversation? What are the untapped values? What are the untapped opportunities within the undergraduate community that you have seen and you think have not been explored enough, or we need to focus on exploring?
Yeah, very interesting question. And let me thank you again for, I'm really impressed with what you're doing and gathering the undergraduate communities together. Before I answer that question, I would want to drift a little. Before we talk about potentials and untapped potentials and opportunities that are burnt in the undergraduate community, I want to ask the undergraduate a question. And that question is, what do they call themselves? Right? Without you knowing who you are, you cannot talk about potentials and talk about the things you can do. I hope I can share my screen. I want to show just one thing, if you can give me the permission.
Okay, I'm going to make you a host. So when you just, all right, done.
Okay, cool. So I'll go ahead to share my screen. A minute. Okay, so okay, can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I want to show you this. For you to talk about untapped potentials in an ecosystem, you need to understand who you are. Without you understanding who you are, you cannot identify potentials. And generally, I always tell young people that we are already calling you a human being. But have you ever sat down to understand your humankind? Without you understanding your humankind, your being will not really make sense. And that is one thing I want to reiterate this afternoon. Now, as undergraduates, you are the one standing, you are the black individual standing here, and there's a road that connects you to your graduation. The Nigerian undergraduates generally have been made to believe that the only thing they should look forward to is graduation as undergraduates, because they are undergraduates. Now, but what they have not been able to define is that the word undergraduate does not mean that they should underperform. It does not mean that they should undervalue themselves. The word undergraduate does not mean that they should underthink. It does not even mean that they should underhand, right? So the journey to graduation is not the only thing you are looking forward to. What you're looking forward to is not just to wear this cap that you see here, because the dream of most undergraduate students in Nigeria and in Africa generally is to graduate. That is not the only thing you are looking forward to. And I want to really reiterate that. Before you talk about you identifying the values and the potential that exists in your immediate environment, you must understand who you are. Now, in the university as undergraduates, this is a university here. You are leaving the university with 4 things. As undergraduate, when you graduate, you can leave the university with 4 things, right? You may leave the university with your certificate. You may leave the university with the knowledge of schooling. You may leave the university with education, and you may leave the university with self-discovery. Now, if you leave the university with your certificate, you may get a job. That is normal. When you leave the university with schooling, when you say somebody is highly schooled in something, you may be able to create a job. When you leave the university with education, you may be able to create value, right? But when you leave the university with self-discovery, you are a dangerous person, because you may be able to change the course of history in your immediate environment and world over, right? So this is the foundation of my conversation on undergraduates, understanding the potentials and the untapped opportunities in their immediate environment. When you have discovered yourself, you'll be able to know the value that you can bring on board, and you'll be able to see the problems that exist in your environment that you can disrupt, right? So as an undergraduate, it does not mean that you should undervalue yourself. Your aim is not just to earn that certificate or to wear that cape. What you're looking forward to is more than that. Now, in your immediate environment, there are several opportunities that exist. And I think that the greatest innovation are not spoon-fed innovation. I may list a lot of potentials now, tell you, you can start this kind of business, you can disrupt this space. But the truth is I can only list the ones I know myself. And innovation and ideas are embedded in people, the type of innovation that the world has never seen before. As we are all on this call, there are thousands of innovation that the world has never seen before. And I can only list the one I have identified myself. So innovation and untapped potentials are not about spoon feeding people what they should do. But when they discover themselves, they will be able to see what they can do, right? So that is my response to that. Self-discovery first, and I'm going to touch on those untapped potentials in the course of this conversation. But we must start with this. And as we go in the conversation, begin to think about what is your aim of being an undergraduate? Is it just to graduate, and when they call, where are the graduates? You come out with your certificate. Or you want to be truly educated and discover yourself before you leave the shores of the university. I want you to know that the university is just, you spend maximum of 6 years if you study medicine. And beyond that wall of the university, there are other opportunities that are banned before you leave, between your 4 years and your 6 years, right? So let's start from self-discovery and begin to think about, why are you an undergraduate? And what has the word undergraduate done to your self-esteem? The word under there, does it mean undervalue yourself? Does it mean you are dependent for the rest of your days as an undergraduate? Does it mean that you are you do not have the power to create anything. Does it mean underthink? Does it mean under-innovate? So begin to think about what the word under in your undergraduate has done to you as an individual. Then that can lead you to ask questions, and then that leads you to identifying untapped potentials yourself. But I'm going to list some before we leave this conversation. Thank you. Tony, I can't hear you.
Okay, yes, thank you. So please, okay, you still have more slides, right? No, you need to unmute yourself. You're currently mute, sir.
Okay, so I have like 2 more slides, but that can come later. Or you want me to talk about my slides?
Okay, no, I was thinking maybe you should remain the host, but just give me the ability to unmute myself. And
That's
then
okay.
maybe you can also give me permission to record, because we're supposed to be recording this, but that's not a problem. So just remain the host, and then just give me, okay,
Yep,
okay, and
I've
then just give,
allowed.
okay, so I can unmute myself. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I love your response, because it just totally opens a new perspective to how I'm currently thinking about the untapped potential of the undergraduate community, because I was thinking purely in economic terms, but it actually always starts from the human capacity of the members of that undergraduate community. So that was such an insightful, mind-opening response. So we'll tackle that better during the strategy session, but I don't want to get too excited and stray you away from the focus. So we're still talking trivia here. This mass level of undiscovery of people's talents, people's economic potential, especially in the undergraduate community, because of maybe a way of thinking or just because the environment doesn't support it, has created a gap, an economic gap that is defining the ecosystem that we find ourselves in Nigeria and in Africa, right? And I want us to quickly tap into, I know it's a trivia, but I want us to quickly tap into your exposure to ecosystems, because I know you've exposed yourself to ecosystems across the world. What do you think is that major gap between the undergraduate community and the African economic creation ecosystem?
That's a very interesting question. I think from my experience, the first gap is that we used to clamor, as young people, for example, we used to clamor to be on the table of decision making, right? Now we have been given a place on the table, but we are on the table, but we are not with the table, right? If you look at this, right, we want to be on the table. We want to be part of the decision making to bridge the gap in this ecosystem. Now, we've been invited to the table, but we are on the table, but we are not part of the table. We are on the dining table, but our own chair as young people has been, has been facing another direction for a long time, right? Now, in my practical experience with ecosystem building, for example, in Nigeria, I've noticed that the people who are decision makers to make the ecosystem thrive and to help young people to discover their potentials and create value, they are also operating in fragmented cycles, right? The collaboration in the ecosystem is very, very low. And that was one of my passion for the Nigerian innovation ecosystem at some point in time, right? So the gap of, so the practical ecosystem is there. And now we're talking about undergraduates. Most universities have, for example, Department of Entrepreneurship. Some universities have entrepreneurial center. Now, what is being done in the university as entrepreneurship is different from what is being done in the actual ecosystem as entrepreneurship. Now, a university professor who is supposed to help young people, in the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, to create value, is just publishing papers on entrepreneurial issues without having the practical understanding of what is happening in the industry. Now, the industry practitioners are beefing the people in the university because they feel these people are academic entrepreneurs. They don't know anything about the real issues in the market. Now, there's a division that is going on. Now, when undergraduates are coming from that thought pattern of academic entrepreneurship into actual get dirty entrepreneurship, they are shocked because where they are coming from is not the same as where they are entering. You know, so there's a division in the ecosystem from that perspective. Number two, another number two gap that I've discovered is that most young people they don't understand what it means to create value. They just, you know, they've always told them to start something. That when you graduate, there's no job. Start something. Start doing this thing. Start doing business. But they do not have the right understanding of what it means to be a startup. Many young people want to be a boss without creating value, first of all. And once you start out your value creation journey with the intention of being a boss, you have already failed. Because entrepreneurship is first of all a risk. It is first of all try and error, you know. So once you start out with being a boss rather than creating value, you have gotten it wrong from the onset, right? And that is a big gap. And I've discovered that from working with startups in different parts of Nigeria. Most startups are upstart. They are not startups, they are upstart. They're already at the end of the journey when they've not started, right? They're already profiling themselves on LinkedIn as a global director of a conglomerate when they've not registered a business, right? They are already calling themselves directors and CEOs, you know, they've not gotten the model of their value creation correctly. So there's that gap of understanding of what entrepreneurship is all about. There's that gap of understanding what startup is all about. And there's that gap of understanding what value creation is all about. Without that understanding, the gap will continue to get wide. Now, the number three gap is that most young people, especially undergraduate, think money is everything. They think when you ask them, oh, you told me about this idea several years ago, what are you doing about it? They will say they are waiting for money. Now, if you are not prepared for money and money comes, you are going to mess up, right? So the gap of understanding the idea of money and funding and entrepreneurship and in value creation is another big gap. I shared a story of 4 entrepreneurs who were co-founders, you know, over a year ago, and they were really doing well building their platform. But at some point, they got into this pressure to scale when the model is not right. They've not even gotten it correctly. Now they were looking for funding, and the funding came. When the funding came, they started being entrepreneurial ecosystem mentors. They were traveling all around on speaking engagement, and they abandoned the idea for which they got funded. And in just 2 years, they went bankrupt, and investors were following them everywhere to get their monies back because they didn't understand what this value creation is all about. Value creation is about service. It's about creating for the long term, not for the immediate gain. It's about finding a need that you can disrupt and that generations that comes after you will gather around your memory and appreciate that you had the foresight to disrupt that space. It's not just about, you know, when many young people, especially undergraduates, they will appreciate when Dangote buys a new car, but they will not appreciate the process is going through to build another business portfolio. They will appreciate that Otedola bought 3 cars for his children, but they will not appreciate what he has gone through, you know, to get to that stage when he can afford $1 million to buy 3 cars at once, right? So it is important that the value system of undergraduate and young people change. If that can change, we can bridge the 3 gaps of understanding what value creation is from their side, and then the gap of the disparity between the university, that is the town, the gown, and the actual business environment, which is the town. We'll be able to bridge that gap as well if the undergraduate can bridge the gap of understanding what it is all about from their side.
All right, amazing responses. Thank you so much. We're going to take one last question for the trivia, which is, okay, now that we've been able to identify these gaps, what do you think is the biggest area of impact that is, number one, affecting that value creation ecosystem of Africa, of Nigeria, of Africa, and then the undergraduate participation in that ecosystem? What is the biggest area of impact amongst these gaps that are creating these dysfunctions?
Okay, so that's a very good question. My straight away answer to that is that we need reachable mentors. We need reachable mentors. I've had the opportunity of reaching out to people I thought could mentor me in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, and I discovered at the end of the day that they were just noisemakers. Now, when a young person comes to you, maybe by the virtue of what you've been able to do in your industry, and a young person comes to you for mentorship, right? And they have genuine questions. They want answers that can help them channel their energies correctly. And all you are telling them is, "Na God help me, oh, na God."
Right.
Yes. We must be able to become reachable and sincere mentors, right? And we must be sincere to share our mistakes and failures with young people. And that is what I think is we really need among all those gaps that I've talked about. We need reachable and sincere mentors who will tell you the way it is, right? And we need mentors that are ready to be vulnerable to share their stories with young people. Now, when you look at some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, they had reachable mentors, people who showed them the value of money, people who showed them the value of networks, people who showed them the value of leverage, people who showed them the value of relationships in value creation. But we lack that a lot in Nigeria, because once some entrepreneurs get to this stage where they are becoming a force in the ecosystem, and the celebration is coming, and the futures on international media is coming, we tend to lose them to this stage that is unreachable, to this platform that is highly elevated and lofty, that young people cannot reach out to them. So we need reachable mentors. We need more mentors. And I published a few days ago on my page that we need 3 people. As young people, you need to meet 3 people as young people, and that is, you need a mentor that speaks to you, or you need a coach that speaks to you. You need a mentor that speaks with you, and you need a sponsor that speaks about you behind the closed doors where you do not have a mouth.
Wow.
And these are the 3 types of people we need in this value creation ecosystem for young people. Me and you, we need to be reachable mentors. We need to be we need to be a true coach. So they need that coach that speaks to them. They need that mentor that speaks with them. And they need that sponsor that speaks about them where they do not have a mouth. If we can have these 3 people, and these 3 set of people can be combined in one person, and we can have them also in clusters. If the young people have access to these 3 types of people, the value creation ecosystem in Nigeria and Africa will be greatly transformed. Thank you. Thanks to people like Tony Elumelu, thanks to people like Strive Masiyiwa, who are trying to give back to the young people, and they are becoming more reachable. They are becoming more personal in mentorship for young people in the value creation ecosystem. But we need more. We need more people. We just don't want to see our successful entrepreneurs as millionaires who have gone ahead. If we are going to create strong institutions that will transcend generations to come, we need to have these 3 types of people as mentors, as ecosystem mentors in the value creation ecosystem of Nigeria.
Wow, amazing. So let's dive right into the discourse, right, about how ecosystems are built. But to buttress your point, the area of mentorship being the biggest impact area also makes us ask the flip side of the question, which is how many undergraduates are actually mentorable? That means until undergraduates begin to actually put in an effort to solve their local problems, we cannot best exploit that area, that big impact of mentorship. For example, now, I have the privilege of having you here right now. If I have not put in any effort to bridge the gap between undergraduate community and then the African ecosystem, I cannot get your mentorship. It is as simple as that. So let us now discuss how ecosystems are built. Because in the venture matrix, one thing I highlighted is that one foundational thing that must be done that will correct this dysfunction within our system is the creation of an enabling environment. If students do not see a way to opportunity, a way to a better life through this route that we're trying to chart, through this mentorship we're trying to provide, once it doesn't align with their self-beliefs or dreams, then there's no need to get involved. So how are ecosystems built to actually be inclusive and sustainable, right? For economic value creation. And before you answer that, sir, can you please, I think you should make me the host because there's some settings I have to quickly do.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. And I would respond, first of all, to your concern about the fact that if somebody is not mentorable, it will be hard for a mentor to come on board, right?
Yes.
And I agree with you. I think this also connects back to the first thing I said about self-discovery. If you discover yourself, you are able to, put yourself in that position where a mentor is willing to mentor you. Yeah. When you have something you are bringing to the table. And then many young people I've gone to many places to speak, and after the speaking engagement, you see a lot of young people come to you. I would like you to be my mentor, sir. I would like you to be my mentor, sir. And 3 days after you have met them, the next thing they are asking you is they are bringing personal family problems, first of all, right? That is not mentorship, right? Mentorship can get to that stage, but many undergraduates need to understand that mentorship is first of all about value exchange.
Value. Wow. Yes, sir.
Mentorship is first of all about value exchange. If you're looking for, so there's a difference between a financial sponsor and a mentor. A mentor can be your financial sponsor, but it doesn't start with being a financial sponsor, right? The fact that somebody has become very successful in this field and you want to be in that field and become even yet greater than the person, you must not start that relationship with your personal problems, right? Your personal problems can be solved when you have exchanged value to a point where the person has become more of a father, a brother, and a family, right? Now, I did a program for a mentor of mine. He was a distant elder brother, but in 2017, the person, I was still in Nigeria then, the person reached out to me and said, okay, I want to give back to the Nigerian community. I want to come home. Can you organize a workshop where I come to speak to young people? He was in Australia. I was in Nigeria. We never shared any close relationship, but we only met in the university before he graduated from his master's degree. And he knew I was active in the Ibadan ecosystem. And all I did was, he asked me to send a quote of what I would need to spend to organize that event, right? And I gave him a budget and he sent the money. We organized the event and I ensured that I had a receipt for every penny spent from the money he sent to me. And we gathered 250 young people at the University of Ibadan, and he came to speak to them, right? And at the end of the event, he mentioned something when I went to his hotel room before he traveled back to Australia, and he said, not many young people can do what you have just done. The money I sent to you, I didn't tell you to account for it, but you had thought it wise to account for every penny, right? And the gift he gave me after that event was almost close to the amount of money we used to organize the event. Value exchange. And then, I was able to be his foot soldier in Nigeria for most of his projects, and that is mentorship. At that point in time, I had personal needs, but I ensured that I did not start that relationship, right, by asking for my personal needs. Because I know that value exchange is very, very, very important. So young people, must learn that. Value exchange is the foundation of mentorship. If you don't have something, when I met Toyin, for example, I think you brought on board, you brought to the table a huge value system that when I read some of your portfolios and the things coming out of your mouth, I checked what you've been doing online. I was glad to be part of what you're doing. If you don't have anything you are bringing to the table, a mentor might not give you an audience. So that's to clarify that. Now, going to how ecosystems are being built, right? From the definition of ecosystem, a lot of different parts of a system working together, you know, for the objective and for the dream of the general interest of that ecosystem. So ecosystem, when we talk about the innovation or value creation ecosystem generally, there are different actors and stakeholders in that space. We have generally, if we are to break the innovation ecosystem into two, we have the knowledge economy and the market economy. If we break it into two broad parts, but if we want to break it into all the actors working together, then we have the entrepreneurs, we have the venture capitalists, we have the research and development space, we have the ecosystem mentors, we have the market economy people, such as marketers, advertisers, and every other person working together in that ecosystem. Now, I will need to speak to the two broad divisions because this speaks more to the undergraduates, the knowledge economy and the market economy. Between the knowledge economy is maybe you are an independent entrepreneur spinning your idea in your room, you are in the university as an undergraduate, or you are already under incubation or acceleration program with a tech hub or with an entrepreneurial incubation system. Now, between the knowledge economy and the market economy, there's a gap called the value of debt. So I think you guys should read more about it. And I have a lot of articles online and even an academic article on the value of debt in the Nigerian innovation ecosystem. When my research in South Korea was based on that, how most Nigerian entrepreneurs don't survive the value of debt between their idea, conception, and putting a product out to the market, right? That valley is very dangerous for Nigerian value creators. Many, I know the lifespan of an average new company or a new business in Nigeria is 2 years before they die, you know? So it's very important that we understand how ecosystems are being created. And in the innovation ecosystem, nobody is an island. You need to agree with every other person in that ecosystem for you to become successful. Now, I would like to mention that it is better for you to be a 2% shareholder in the ecosystem and become successful than for you to plan to own 90% in that ecosystem and you fail. Because you must be ready to agree with all the people in the ecosystem for you to be successful. No one is an island in that ecosystem. So ecosystem is being created by collaboration. And I want you to know that like collaboration is the new competition. In the value creation ecosystem, where you have the entrepreneurs or the startups, as the case may be, where you have the acceleration and the incubators, I beg your pardon. And then you have the government, right? Without right government policy, your idea cannot scale. Then you have the research and development centers. Then you have the venture capitalists or angel investors. You have the customers or the buyers, you know, in that ecosystem. And then you have the advertisers and the marketers and the design thinking experts that, or the customer journey mapping experts that helps you to scale when you get more investment. So those are the actors in the ecosystem and they all work together, you know, to make that ecosystem what it is. But without you agreeing and cooperating, it's like you are driving on the road. Maybe you have to resume in the office by 8 a.m. in Lagos and you leave your house very early in the morning and you're driving. You have to compete and collaborate at the same time. You have to compete and cooperate. In this ecosystem, competition and cooperation work together. right? So when you are driving on the road in the morning and you have to get to the office by 8 a.m., you are allowed to overtake. You know, when the road is clear, you overtake. You are competing. But also when there is an oncoming truck and you have to get to work very early and you are behind another vehicle, you have to cooperate with the truck that is coming if you don't want to die, right? So competition and cooperation are the key elements in this ecosystem, and that is how the ecosystem runs. So I guess I've been able to give a good response to that.
Yes, very sufficient, very well-rounded. Wow, my mind is blown. Thank you so much for such an insightful response. So, yeah. So as I said, I always like to use the second questions to leverage off the experience and exposure of our guests. So, you've been able to decipher what an ecosystem means, in its most basic and skeletal form. But what do you think, as I said, you've been to Asia, you've been to, of course, Africa. I don't know how many other continents, but I'm sure you've been to other continents. What are the elements that you've seen as being consistent in vibrant value creation ecosystems? What are the elements so that you can use this as measurable platforms when we finally decide to get involved with creating a living environment, creating institutions to democratize the power of that environment, which now forms our own form of value creation ecosystem. So what are the elements of a vibrant value creation ecosystem?
Thank you so much. I think the most consistent and to creating a vibrant ecosystem that I've seen everywhere in the world is entrepreneurial support structure.
Wow.
Entrepreneurial support structure. Now, in Africa, we do not have enough seed funding.
Wow.
But, when somebody comes to you that I have this idea, I want to test run it. I don't know if it will make sense, but I need to test it out. In other parts of the world, I know of the US, there is a lot of structure for seed funding in the US. In Europe, I had a business call with somebody in Netherlands yesterday for a collaborative investment platform. And the person was telling me about how the government of Netherlands has been able to create a lot of seed funding portfolio for young people, to test run their ideas. And this is how the innovation ecosystem becomes a boom, right? Now, I've seen that everywhere in the world. Without the right support system structure for entrepreneurship and value creation, there's always that outlook of backwardness in the ecosystem. So we need to create that structure. We have not gotten to that stage yet in Africa where we can play with our money when it comes to ideas, right? Because ideas require a lot of investment. And when I mean investment, human resource investment, financial investment to test run an idea.
Yes, sir.
Now, until we get to that point, we will still be at that stage of dreaming to build a successful business ecosystem and not strong institutions.
Wow.
Asia as a continent has gone beyond building successful and profitable businesses. They've moved to building strong institutions. And in Africa, we are still at that stage of building profitable businesses. The dream is to build a profitable business. The dream is to build a scalable business. But in Asia, for example, they've moved ahead to building strong institutions. Yes, Alibaba is not just a profitable business, it's an institution, a strong institution, right? So Amazon is not a profitable business, it is an institution. And until we have the right support system for entrepreneurial prototyping, we will still be experiencing backwardness in Africa, right? So we need to get to that point where we can have structure where we can give $10,000 to this young innovator to test run the idea, to prototype under close monitoring, right? We need to get to that point where we can say, take this $5,000, do the prototyping, let us see, right? And this prepares the road for more investment because some investors want to see what you've done. They want to see your numbers. They want to see how the ideas work, especially when we talk about technology ideas. Most people just want to see, if you tell them about agriculture, they know that once you plant this, you harvest this. that makes sense to them. But when you are talking about a technological idea, especially to investors who are actually the technology adapted generation, because there's a difference between the technology born generation and the technology adapted generation. Most people who are investors are in the technology adapted generation. They don't understand some of the things you are explaining on blockchain, on cryptocurrency, on fintech, on health technology, on ed tech. They don't understand. They want to see the demonstration. And for sometimes, for you to be able to create the demonstration, you must have seed funding to actually prototype,
Yes,
to
sir.
bring the idea to life, to actually have the MVP that you can show, right? And then, so that doesn't mean that, because sometimes we tend to say young people are in Africa, they are lazy. They are not lazy. I don't agree. If we give them the right support systems, they can create something phenomenal that will change the trajectory of Africa in entrepreneurship and value creation. So that is very consistent everywhere I've gone to.
Wow. Wow. Awesome. You know, one thing I've picked out now is that, you know, I never thought of this before, or, you know, not articulated in this way, but from what you said now, that means one of the biggest creators or one of the biggest contributors to the dysfunction where the undergraduate community or young people are not actively participating in value creation is because the current systems are too risk averse. We don't have systems that are adapted for risk, right? To encourage or create that enabling environment for undergraduates, especially, to get involved in entrepreneurship. Awesome. So that begs the third question. Now that we are aware that risk, right, is the biggest metric for understanding how ecosystems are built to be vibrant, who are the major stakeholders who need to be convinced, or who are the major stakeholders? Okay, let me ask it in two ways. Who are the stakeholders who need to be convinced, who need to buy into this need for creating for risk embracing systems, right? And who are the ones who already are convinced but just need to be engaged for us to be able to create these systems that make our undergraduate community an enabling environment for value creation?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm glad to answer the two. The first one, who are the people that need to be convinced to create a support system? Everywhere I've gone, there's a country called Chile, and they started a program called Startup Chile. And the idea behind Startup Chile is that the government created this ministry or this government office that is responsible for accelerating entrepreneurial ideas in Chile. And they give the money to university students, but you must drop out of the university.
Wow.
Take that funding to go and work on your idea. It's
Wait,
crazy, right?
I'm sorry, sir. I need to understand this. The government pays you to drop out to create stuff. I'm going to Chile.
Yeah. Go and read about it.
Wow.
They will give you the money as an undergraduate as long as you can show that you have an idea that is worth investing in. You have to leave the university. Wow. And then the government has the structure. You know, once you get the funding, you are under the government incubator and acceleration program. But you have to leave the university to come and face this. Because they know that to be an innovator that will scale, the normal classroom, the geology you are studying, the microbiology you are studying might be a distraction to this idea. They have been able to separate university education and innovation. Right. So, you know, I'm saying that to say that in Nigeria, for example, until the government has this structure that supports young people entrepreneurial and young people's entrepreneurial ventures, we may not be able to get to that point where we create multiple innovators at the same time in Nigeria. And this is happening all around Africa as well. The biggest supporter of innovation should be the government, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Living in South Korea, when I was living in South Korea, I cannot count the number of times I used a product that is from outside Korea. There are people drive their own day and Kia vehicles. You will see other vehicles, you will see Benz, you will see BMW, but the highest number of vehicles you will see on the road on day and care produced within the country. They use their Samsung phones, right? So if the country can invest, in innovation fully, and I'm not talking about just doing it to score political points. I don't mean that. I mean a sustainable entrepreneurial support system plan that has the funding, that has the mentorship, that has the scalability plans for young people, and the use, the use in Nigeria, use Nigerian products made in Nigerian advert is just to score political points. It's not something that we have embraced. What are we producing when we are even importing toothpick, right? So it is very important that the government is the first mover of this idea of venture creation support, for young innovators in Nigeria. It is their responsibility. And I've seen that everywhere. Chile is doing it, South Korea is doing it, China is doing it, the US is doing it. Now, in terms of the people who are already aware, but they need more enlightenment, or they need more information or a push to be fully onboarded, are the people we call the venture capitalists.
Wow. I
They
totally
are
agree.
They are aware, but they are not. It is very, I will speak for Nigeria. It is very hard or to fail in Nigeria. Or how do I put it? It is, you don't want to fail in Nigeria. Failure is expensive in Nigeria.
True.
Failure is expensive. Now, the venture capitalists have heard about these ideas of young people. They deep down within them, they know that this idea is fantastic. But the venture capitalists don't just think about how fantastic your idea is. They think about the environment where you want to test run the idea.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Awesome.
When they say that this idea is wonderful, but with the current government policies in Nigeria, can this idea scale? So once they think about that, they keep their monies to themselves. And they prefer an idea that is not as good as the idea of young people in Nigeria, maybe somewhere in Brazil. A Nigerian venture capitalist will go and put his money there because there's an enabling environment. I want you to know that a not so good idea with an enabling environment will scale than a very fantastic idea in a bad environment. So it is very important that our venture capitalists, they understand this, right? And that is why I said the government needs to start it. If the government starts it, the private investors and private equity bankers can actually
You'll be incentivized to do it.
Because in fact, the future is that the private equity and venture capitalist bankers take this space, after they've seen that the government is in full support, right? Because in that space now, we can create more competition, because we believe that if the government is out of a process, there's faster competition. All we need from the government is the right policies in place, and they are the ones starting it off. The government should have that structure for monitoring, for regulation, and to encourage young people, to innovate. Young people should have the resources to prototype their ideas, and then the private sector will embrace it fully. But I want you to know that we have a lot of people with money to invest in young people in Nigeria, but they are afraid because it is expensive to fail.
Wow. So the biggest disruption has to, just as the venture matrix has just always highlighted, it is the creation of that enabling environment. Once we can disrupt that and make sure that the environment within the undergraduate community becomes a fail-safe environment for people to take more risk to create and solve their local problems, that is going to definitely change the game. So let's get into strategy session. Let's work with the worst case scenario, which we are already in, which is, what can the undergraduate community do to create their own? Because one thing, a mentor was told me something that really blew my mind. He said, anything that the government touches dies, and it started framing my thoughts of the role of government in, especially even economic resource management, which is, I do not think the government should be involved in creation or in deployment of or even yes, deployment of our economic resources. They should not be in charge of international partnerships and creating the right environment for the allocation of these resources. That is what I believe, right? So how do we create an enabling environment that's independent of the touch of the government? And the government doesn't just mean those at the federal government or at the state level or even the community, but it encompasses the government as a structure from the top to the bottom to even the university governance, because those guys play a huge role in this conversation that most times we easily neglect, because once we hear government we just think of those guys up the top. So how do we create a system independent of this governance structure that can easily corrupt whatever we create? So how do we create that enabling environment and still have a vibrant ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And this is my main, the new model that we need to start exploring, especially in a place where there seems to be a little support from the government, in quote. Now, I wrote an article a while ago and I named it The Rebellious Power of Technology. And I was talking about technology startups in that article, the rebellious power of technology. Now, we may need to embrace that model to build a vibrant ecosystem that is not dependent on the government, right? Now, I spoke about the division that is happening in the innovation ecosystem when it comes to people starting hubs, when people are starting innovation hubs all around. There are different interests with these hubs. And because the truth is, every young person that has made it out of Nigeria in terms of entrepreneurship, and they were not doing it in connection with the government, they still had support of the private ecosystem. I don't want us to forget that. You need a support, you need a push one way or the other. And this speaks to the value you are creating. Young people must be, first of all, hardworking, and they should get a clear understanding of what they are doing. Once they get that, then collaboration can start. Do you know you can build, I've read stories of young entrepreneurs in different parts of the world who built a particular industry to the point where the government had no choice than to call them that guys, come.
Exactly.
What are you guys doing? Like, we can see you everywhere, right? So exploring, first of all, understanding the value you want to create. It must be a clear vision. Okay, so a young person want to, for example, there's an idea that I will share with you for free. For example, a few days ago, I was thinking about, many of us in our bank accounts, sometimes you just have 200 naira left there. You have 300 naira left in this account, sometimes for 2 months without before another money comes. And then before you know it, the banks will remove 50 naira today, 25 naira tomorrow, card maintenance, card that you have not used.
Not used.
All kinds of things. What if we create a system that saves, instead of leaving the money there for the banks to just be messing with we call them, is it chicken change? There's an economics name for it. What if we create a system a technology that lifts the money from your account? But many people run 3 accounts. You have 1,000 left in this one. You have 100 naira left in this one. What if we create a system, a technology that lifts the money from your account to this system that saves the money up for you there, instead of the bank just messing up? When I was living in Nigeria, I think I left 10,000 naira in a particular account. Don't let me mention the name. I left 10,000 naira there. As at yesterday, the money is around 7,100. I never used the account. I never used it. I just left 10,000 naira there. I have 7,100. They remove card money every month, they just have these names that I don't even bother reading what it means, what they are deducting my money from. Which means keeping your money in the bank is not the future. It is, in fact, keeping your money in the bank is leading you towards more poverty these days, right? And that is why this online banking system, online banks like PiggyVest, like
Carry wise.
Alert, all these platforms are the future of keeping your money. Now, with the new announcement they made yesterday on you coming to the bank to fill some forms, when we have BVN, when other countries are moving away from social security number to Yandex, I don't understand. So the future, when you begin to think like this, then you begin to create value, then you begin to think about what you can do to disrupt that place or that space or that problem you've identified. It's a big opportunity in Nigeria as we speak, how you can help people to keep their money and they are not losing the value for their money because the banks are just deducting your money for nothing, right? So these are the kind of ideas that we can begin to think about, and young people can begin to collaborate. Okay, I'm good with experience design. I'm good with the technical part of it. There's nothing like somebody will steal your idea. This is 2020. Don't keep the idea you say you are keeping. 10 million people are thinking about the same thing at the same time. So ideas these days is about who starts it first, not about who has it first. Everybody is thinking. So don't think, I was talking to a young man from the University of Ibadan one time, and he has this idea to, don't let me share the idea. And he shared the idea with me, and he asked me to sign non-disclosure. He said, that is an insult to me because this idea you just shared with me, I had people who shared it with me 7 years ago. So you are not the first person to do this thing. You want me to sign NDA because you think your idea is out of this world. This is 2020. You can only build on what other people have been thinking about. And if your idea is new, don't think you are the only one thinking about it. 10 million other people are thinking about it at the same time. It's about who is starting it first. Yes, sir. Right? So young people should leave that idea. They should come of it. They should come on. They should come of it. This is 2020. Ideas are spinning everywhere in the world. Now, discover the value, look for collaborators in the ecosystem, and I will encourage the private incubators to actually collaborate. They should not just be co-working spaces. Yes, most incubation hubs in Nigeria are just co-working spaces. They should have like strong and solid structures to help the young innovators in the innovation ecosystem of our country or all around Africa, so that we can build a system that is so strong that the government has no choice, but to get involved, to give us the kind of policy and regulation that we need. When we build that kind of system, the government is the one that will sell our product outside Nigeria.
Outside, exactly. Wow. Thank you so much for such a passionate, but yet very precise, insightful response. And just for free publicity for my OAU peeps, we actually have, one of them is here. So some group of undergraduates in OAU who have been able to create a solution to the problem you just spoke about. It's called Flux. So they help you actually save your money in dollars. So very, very amazing work that they are doing. So Flux, you guys should, Ayomide, I just gave you guys free advert. So you guys have to pay me for that. All right, that's just a joke. But all right, awesome response. Wow, time is fast spent, but we have 15 more minutes. So we're going to just take the last question of the strategy session and then the forum together. So earlier you spoke about our untapped potential being that a large chunk of the undergraduate community have not discovered themselves, right? Especially as regards their economic potential to create value. Now, one big proposition, in fact, the major proposition of the Venture Matrix for the Future of Africa is to fix the local economy and transform our economies to emergent economies, meaning that when local economies can begin to create, manage, and also increase, their economic value, per time, that is when we start having emergent communities, and that can become a reality when our undergraduate community who are already within these local communities begin to create global solutions to their local problems. So how do we, drive self-discovery for the undergraduate community that directly impacts that narrative, that directly impacts, economic value creation, for this ecosystem that we're trying to build?
That's a very interesting question. And I would say that for undergraduates to be exposed to this kind of system that gives them the ideologies of creating something sustainable that can lead to emergent market system, is they should get off their books, their bookish mind. For me, I regret the fact that throughout my 4 years on the graduate journey, all I was pursuing was the first class. I had the first class, but after I had the first class, I felt this vacuum that I just wasted my 4 years. All I was pursuing was first class, and I had the first class. And I'm not discouraging undergraduate not to pursue academic excellence. It is very important, right? Now, but I want them to also discover that creative part. You can be a bookish person or a bookworm and still discover your creative part. For me, I spent 2 years in Ibadan. After living abroad, I came back home to discover my creative part, to discover other things I can do outside the school system, outside the academic system. Now, the current undergraduate have the opportunity, because I can see with what you're doing with Venture Matrix and your campus ambassador programs, now they are beginning to see that the life outside is kind of different from the four wall of any university in Nigeria, right? Because there's this funny situation that happens in our Nigerian education system these days, that if you are a very good student in your undergraduate, most universities will ask you to come back for your master's fully sponsored, and then you go to do the master's. And by the time you are finishing the master's, the next thing your supervisor is telling you to come and start a PhD, without actually discovering if you need a PhD at that point in time, without actually discovering what you want to live for. It's not everybody that we end up in the academia, right? And that is why we have many academic mistakes in our classrooms today, right? Because they've not been able to discover who they are. They just follow that flow. I'm good in my bachelor's. I did my master's. They asked me to go to PhD. And then they will finish the PhD frustrated. And they will now discover that, oh, I'm very good with this. Self-discovery as an undergraduate is very important, right? So it is the solution, the answer to your question is this kind of thing you're doing when the people outside who have seen how it is to always go to the campus. We should snatch the undergraduates from the academic thinking alone. And what Venture Matrix is doing is to snatch them for a minute from the academic thinking patterns and say, okay, the education you are getting, it is not just to write the exam, it is to apply. So what you're doing is to take the application to them. The classroom will teach them the knowledge, the practical way of thinking, and then you take the execution and the practical way of applying that knowledge in the classroom to them. So I will encourage all the people we call ecosystem mentors. I like what a big brother of mine, Emeka Osai, is doing on the University of Ibadan campus. Since 2007, he has been on that campus, and a lot of successful entrepreneurs has come out of that program. The campus lab at the University of Ibadan is doing so much for that campus, for undergraduate to apply the knowledge of the classroom to a practical life situation. Because the truth is, the world needs more solution providers these days. The world needs, we are tired of people speaking more English. We need more solutions. We don't need more degrees. We need more solutions. We don't need more certificates. We need more solutions, right? And it is in this kind of taking the solution provision thinking pattern to the campuses. That is when we'll be able to, the undergraduate will imbibe that value system of venture value creation that can lead to emergent market value system.
Wow, amazing, amazing, awesome. So let us round up on this one question. With all the things that we've learned today, all of the insights that we've received, what is that one thing, and that we need to what's that one thing we need to attack first or get right first that would make us know that we're making measurable impact? And how I would like this question to be answered, sir, is it should highlight how multi-stakeholder relationships will be formed towards, through that one act. So what is the one thing that can drive multi-stakeholder relationships towards creating the enabling environments for this value creation ecosystem that would radically change Africa's economic outlook?
My direct answer to that is that we should bring the town to the gown. Since the gown can no longer influence the town, we should bring the town back to the gown. The idea of starting universities is that we use the knowledge creation from the universities to innovate the society. But now the society is even innovating what the universities can learn. So I think we should reverse that order now. We should take the town back to the gown so that our undergraduates will understand that it is not you making a first class. When I made a first class, I went to Abuja for a scholarship exam. And when I met the number of first class graduates in Nigeria, I knew I was nothing. I knew having a first class is no longer the way forward, to claiming that you are brilliant or to claiming that you will have access to opportunities. It is in your own self-discovery that your success is these days, right? So as they are pursuing their first class, they should also be able to discover their creative side, as I've said. Now, let us take the town back to the gown. And what are the things we are taking from the town? Let's take all the stakeholders I talked about in the innovation ecosystem, the venture capitalists, the incubators, the accelerators. We should give them more opportunities on the university campuses, right? We should take these angel investors and take them to the university, even if it's through conferences and workshops, or even starting centers on the campus. Maybe we'll be able to start that conversation where young people can discover who they are. They are beginning to think more innovatively, and then value multiplication. We start from there, right? A company like Facebook started on a university campus, right? Things like WhatsApp and all these things, all these guys had their ideas when they were undergrad, right? So it is very important that university undergraduate have access to tools that makes them think without the box. And that's when the foundation of restructuring this ecosystem can start. So my answer to that, let us take the town back to the gown. That is where the conversation starts from.
Wow, thank you so much for that. And I'm so glad that even before now, I've been able to highlight that in the Venture Matrix of the Future of Africa series, which is what students, undergraduates, need to get involved in solving their local problems and creating value out of it. So thank you so much for your time. We've still been able to keep the time. You've been an amazing contributor to this conversation, and we appreciate that you spared some of your time to do this. So thank you very much, sir. We've come to the end of today's session on Series 5, the forum. We're going to be having the commissioner for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in South Africa, a commissioner for the Fourth Industrial Revolution from South Africa tomorrow, to come and give us that government side of ecosystem creation, especially from a global and African perspective. So thank you so much, sir, for doing this. I personally appreciate you. And in the comment section, there are a lot of appreciation being shared. So thank you very much, sir, once again.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure having this conversation this afternoon.
All right, awesome. So do take care, sir. Do have a great day.